So the show will be starting soon. Please come on in and tune in. Talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
All right, peace and blessings, family. Let's get the show started off right.
You are now tuned in to Real Truth and Power, the show that uplifts the community with health, wealth, and knowledge of self. Here's your host, Everett Winchester.
All right, family, welcome to the Real Truth and Power podcast, Real Truth and Power Live, where we provide powerful content to uplift the Black community with health, wealth, and knowledge of self. I wanted to talk to you guys about equity versus reparations. Joe Biden is doing a big push. Got to give him a little credit. He's trying to pass. He did some executive orders to push for equity. He's trying to get rid of the private prison system. But Black people as a whole, are we forgetting about reparations? Equity, reparations. To me, equity means we get a piece of the pie. For example, if we're all at the table and there's a company and we all invest in it, Black people are going to get the same amount of distribution as the other cultures and races in that situation. Reparations is something different. Reparations means simply to repair damage done to a culture or group by a government, by a country. So equity seems to be helping out the situation, but it's not really repairing. Joe Biden was asked a while back before the election about reparations, and let's see if he talked about it, how he talked about it.
Look at reparations so that we can mend what has been broken.
Vice President Biden, do you support reparations?
Look, let me, since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of every 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we're going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America.
What about reparations, Joe?
The future of America, and we should invest in them. Everybody will benefit from it. Every single American, and you should get used to it. This is a nation of immigrants. That's who we are. That's why we're who we are. That's what makes us different, and we should.
Now, let me get into what Joe Biden said real quick. I think he started talking about equality, and it seems to me the Joe Biden situation is on eliminating unfair treatment, trying to make things equal, trying to get that cash and everything distributed equally. And that's fine moving forward. but we still got a lot of past damage that needs to be done. Dr. Claude Anderson, and I'm going to show a video of Dr. Claude Anderson talking about what reparations is and why we need to get it. Dr. Claude Anderson pretty much basically said, you know, we're in a race. Race is not a culture like you would think. It's actually a race. It's a race for economic power. It's a race for political power. It's a race for resources. And black people are losing that race. So how can we get caught up in that race when we're never going to be on equal ground? We're always going to be behind. And reparations are supposed to get us caught up so we could be at a balance, if that makes sense. Support this sister, Vice President Lady Kamala Harris, the First Lady Vice President and the first black president. I'm sure you saw this video that was trending. Let's see what she says about reparations and what she thinks about reparations.
Do you support reparations for black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act.
Are you proposing
Give
reparations?
People who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at
we need something of our own.
Who will benefit from?
Let me stop right here before we go on. I understand what the sister's saying because I don't want to trash the sister. I understand what she's saying. She's putting policies in place going forward that will help and uplift struggling families, which will help and uplift black families. She's putting in policies in place that will uplift minorities, which will help black people because we're minorities, and she's getting equity like Joe Biden. So we'll start getting a piece of the pie like everybody else, but we're still going to be behind. We can't get caught up unless we get caught up economically with economic power, with businesses and stuff like that. And the only way to do that, in my estimation, is reparations. So when you say you're not doing anything particularly for black people, I understand you're doing everything for the good of the country. But we need something done specifically for us. But let me continue.
Policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
And that is true. If you do something to benefit black people, it'll benefit white people, it'll benefit Asian people, it'll benefit everybody. But how does that get us caught up? You're putting out policies to help out everybody. We need policies to get us up here, to catch us up with everything else that's going on. And that I think is the hard part about it. We need policies for just black people. What about our HBCUs getting more money to catch up to those other schools? So maybe black people can support black HBCUs. Maybe our black athletes will want to go play for a HBCU. It's starting to happen, but when you walk into Howard's gym, it doesn't look the same as North Carolina's gym. It doesn't look the same as Duke's gym and the weight gym. So maybe we can build that up. How about the drug issue in the black community specifically? Why is it so bad in our community? The laws that you're going to pass for everybody won't specifically get the drugs out of our community. What about the specific things that we need? Money for culture centers and the better school systems. So why are you doing laws that will help everyone, which I agree with? I'm not trying to tell this sister not to look out for the whole country. We got to look out for ourselves. Let me go into a video by Dr. Claude Anderson. You guys know I love Dr. Anderson. This is his book, Powernomics, right here. If you haven't gotten it, please get it. I have all of his books. Dirty Little Secrets Part 2. Man, I got about 7 of his books. Haven't read all of them, but I'm working on it. In fact, I don't even have the one I'm working on now. I think it's a book called, and I think it's right here. Yep. The Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. This is a powerful book. I suggest you start with this, then go to Powernomics. Whatever you have, get Dr. Anderson's book, support him. You may always see him on Dr. Boyce Watkins' channel. I just love both of these guys as promoting black economic power. But check this video out and then let me know what you feel about about reparations.
Question is, it's one that's I think was right up your alley. Why do black people deserve reparations? I know, basic question. It's one that we had to ask.
For obvious reason. For after having been having been formerly enslaved for 360 years, then semi-enslaved for another 100 years, then benign, neglected, and politically corrected for another 50 years, then they obviously need some form of reparations. And let's go back to the definition. What is reparation? Reparation means repairing the damage that has been done to black folk. Black folk have been emotionally, psychologically, physically, financially, and politically damaged for almost 500 years in this country. And someone needs to go back and be required to perform some restitution for those negatives and dangers and crippling effects that have happened to black folk.
Go on, brother.
Occurred. So black folk need to be compensated and for all those 500 years of Jim Crow segregation as well as former enslavement.
So what specific instances can you think of in history where black people had things taken from us that we deserve, or opportunities denied to us that would come up in a reparations conversation?
Well, that was the whole point of slavery. The whole point of slavery was the social engineer of black folk in the lowest level of a real life monopoly game, and then to maldistribute almost 100% of all this nation's resources, power.
Wow, did you hear what he said about Monopoly game? It's like a game that they're playing.
Wealth, income, businesses, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society. And more specifically, it was done by the use of land. You see, because when this country was formalized, it set up a system for maldistribution, the control of land. When our first president, which was George Washington, at least I corrected that in one of my books, Black Labor, White Wealth, and Dirty Little Secrets. He was not really the first president, but let's say the official first president of the United States was George Washington. And when George Washington had approved the United States Constitution being ratified in 1789, the first thing he said is that I want 100,000 acres of free land. And that means in everything on that land, the timber, the gold, the silver, the chrome, the bauxite, the magnesium, gas, oil, whatever's on there. He got 100,000 acres of free land. Then when he said that, Thomas Jefferson followed suit and said, I want 100,000 acres of free land. He got 100,000 acres of free land. Then you had Patrick Henry, who said, give me liberty and give me death. He also said, give me some free land. He got 65,000 acres of free land. Now, and that constitutes the basis for most of the maldistribution of wealth and resources in this country, just using land as a basis. Because the immigration laws that came into effect 1 year later in 1790 set up what you call the American Dream. The American Dream was based on two things, free land and free black labor.
Free land and free black labor was the real American dream. And Wow, maybe that's what they mean when they say make America great again.
And so every immigrant coming to this country was able to pick up 640 acres of free land.
Let me go back. Every immigrant was able to get land. You see, Black Americans can't get land. We're over here. We didn't get that 40 acres and a mule. We didn't get a chance to establish our land and build our community.
Coming to the country through land rights and land grants and homesteading acts. And every slave they owned, they picked up 150 acres of free land. And then even when they set up the railroads across this country, when whites set up about 11 railroad lines, they got about 6 miles of free land on both sides of the railroad across the United States. So the 11 railroad lines picked up over 24 million acres of free land. And so in the final conclusion, whites picked up over 1 billion, with a B, not with an M, 1 billion acres of free land. And that meant that, and on that free land, that meant the timber, the land, the gold, the silver, everything of value. And that constituted the basis of wealth in this country for whites. That's why right now, from Boston or Connecticut all the way to San Diego, California, whites own and control almost 99% of all the wealth in this country. And then most of it was founded in the land. And yet by the same token, after whites got that 1 billion acres of free land, black folk couldn't get 1 acre of free land. And so that's why your wealth has been maldistributed.
Wow. So he said a lot right there. And one of the things he ended up with is our wealth being maldistributed. Equity, and I give President Biden, Vice President Sister Kamala Harris, equity is great. We need to have those funds divided up equally, but we're still going to be behind in a lot of those resources. We have to get up to par, and that's where reparations comes. And quite frankly, even with this last president, there's been a lot of damage done to the community over words, over slight, over policies and procedures and things of that nature. And we need to get up to par. So when you start thinking of race, you start thinking of Dr. Claude Anderson. And like he says, race is actually a race, and we're racing. And I got a white man, and he's passing me. Chinese man, they're passing me. I'm way in the back, and he has all the land. He has all the money. He has all the food. He has all the businesses. And all I do is get a little bit of scrapes to give to him. He keeps building up. If I get enough scrapes off my own people, then I go up there. But it's not working right. So we're not looking around at people in our communities, man. So hopefully you guys got that message. We did some other shows this week. Hopefully you can check them up. Please go to the hit those links. And I'll put a link of a video we did just of Dr. Claude Anderson breaking down reparations. He's breaking down how slave owners got reparations, because when they lost their slaves, they were damaged by a government. So reparations came in and they got reparations. And whenever you can get somebody as a slave owner reparations, why can't you why can't you do that for the people that you've enslaved? And I think that's what all we want. So I'm fine with the equity, but we need to talk about reparations in some form. Free college education, to go to HBCUs, better services for HBCUs. Where's the crime situation? Where the jobs at? Where's the community cleanup? The little things that we need, particularly just for ourselves, not for anybody else. We need somebody to do something for us, man. And that's what the reparations is for. And it seems like they're skipping out on that one. So that's just my 2 cents. That's just my opinion. Again, please hit that like and share button. But more importantly, I'm going to need you guys to do one thing, and that's the big bang bang right here. Subscribe. Subscribe. I got a lot of powerful interviews coming up soon. Check out our old interviews in our folders. We have one that's called Live Power Interviews, and the other folders, Let's Go In, and that's when we go in topics like this. So Let's Go In, Live Power Interviews. Check out all of our work, man, and we are out of here. Peace and blessings. Thanks for tuning in to the Real Truth and Power Live podcast. And again, please share and subscribe, and also put your comments in. I love to hear what you guys got to say about this. I love comments. So like it, dislike it. Let's do it. Peace and blessings. There we go.